The splendid empire of the Guptas was already reduced to a shadow at about the beginning of the 6th century. During the reign of its last great Gupta ruler Narasimha Gupta Baladitya, the Huns under a chieftain named Toramanna wrested the province of Malwa from the empire, where they established for themselves an independent kingdom. To their onslaught, the Gupta Empire succumbed, and though a branch of the imperial dynasty continued to flourish in Magadha till about 750 CE, it no longer exercised any authority except in the immediate vicinity of the capital. With the invasion of Toramanna, the imperial Guptas, for all practical purposes, passed out of Indian history. Toramanna founded an independent kingdom in Malwa where he reigned peacefully till about 510 CE. On his death he was succeeded by Mihirakula, who has been described as the Attila of Indian Huns. There is a singular unanimity of opinion regarding the character of his reign, that it was tyrannical beyond endurance. A confederacy of Indian kings such as Yashodharman of Malwa and Narasimha Gupta Baladitya met him at the Battle of Sondani in 528 CE and defeated him. Yashodharman continued to defeat the Hunna forces at the central India and forged an empire of his own. However, it did not stop Mihirakula. He proceeded to invade eastern kingdoms including Magadha. At last, he was defeated and captured by the Gupta king. The Magadha king tried him and declared the right punishment for Mihirakula to be execution. However, Baladitya's mother intervened and argued against capital punishment. Mihirakula's life was thus spared. After his release from Magadha, Mihirakula arrived in the kingdom of Kashmir, where the local king gave him asylum. Mihirakula then usurped power over Kashmir. He assassinated the king of Kashmir and thereafter annexed Gandhara, after a surprise assassination of its king, and a slaughter of all its ministers. He looted the country and carried the spoils to his capital. He killed more people and also demolished Buddhist monasteries. However, the Hun warlord died soon after, which started the end of the Hunnic occupation in India. From the breakup of the Gupta Empire up to the accession of Harsha in 606 CE, the political history of India is that of a period of transition unrealized, either by great names or by great events. Of Yashodharman, the victor of Mihirakula, we know very little except that he was the ruler of an empire which might be even bigger than that of the Guptas. He did not establish a new imperial dynasty is clear, as we see new kingdoms springing up all over northern India within the next few years of his great victory. Thus, northern India had again become divided into a number of minor kingdoms, whose political history is merely a record of dynastic wars. The country south of the Vindhyas was consolidated into a powerful empire by the Chalukya dynasty at about the middle of 6th century, and, in the extreme south, the long-established Pallava power held sway. Much of the history about Harsha comes from his contemporaries, the court poet Banabhatta and the Chinese scholar Hiuen Tsang. Prabhakaravardhana, the king of Thaneshwar, known to his contemporaries as the valiant victor of the Huns, and to history as the father of one of India's greatest monarchs. Prabhakara's ancestors were no more than petty rajas holding sway over the districts that surrounded. They do not seem to have been prominent in the politics of North India, during the days of anarchy resulting from the breakup of the Gupta Empire. It was Prabhakaravardhana who first assumed the title of Maharajadhiraja, while his predecessors having been content with the humbler one of Maharaja. It is clear from the descriptions of Bana that Prabhakaravardhana repulsed more than one invasion of the Huns. He also subdued Malwa and attacked even the distant state of Gujarat. By these and other warlike operations he achieved fame for himself and laid the foundations of an empire, the superstructure of which his greater son was destined to raise. Prabhakaravardhana married Yasavati, with whom he had 2 sons and a daughter. Rajyavardhana was the eldest, and Harsha being the second son. Rajyashri, their only sister, was nearly 2 years younger than Harsha, and his brother was 5 years senior to him. The boys had as their playmate, their cousin Bandhi, the son of Yasavati's brother, who was almost of the same age as Rajyavardhana. The Princess Rajyashri was married, when she grew up, to be a girl of 12 or 13 years of age, to Grahavaman Mukhari of Kannauj. The Mukharis were a most illustrious family, but they do not seem to have attained great political power at any time. As the princes Rajyavardhana and Harsha grew up, the king associated them more and more with his government. In the Hindu system of polity, the Yuvaraja has a distinct position, and he shares with his father the responsibilities of state affairs. Thus, when Rajyavardhana was old enough for wearing armor, the king placed him at the head of an immense force, and sent him towards north to attack the Huns. Harsha was also sent with him to observe and learn. When the princes were thus absent from the capital, Prabhakaravardhana fell seriously ill. The news reached the princes, who were still marching towards north. Rajyavardhana decided to march forward, but sent Harsha at once, who was too young to join the campaign, to attend his father on his deathbed. Soon after that, the king died, and Queen Yasovati chose to die on the funeral pyre of her lord. Harsha undertook the government of the realm till the return of his brother. By the time the news of the king's death reached the crown prince, he was already engaged in the war. He chose not to abandon the field of war in order to hasten to the capital, where he knew the administration will be conducted in his name by Harsha. When the war was over and the victorious Rajyavardhana was back to his kingdom, he found that a new campaign awaited him. King Sasanka of Gauda kingdom found the alliance between Thaneshwar and Kannauj as threatening. As Prabhakaravardhana was dead and the absence of Rajyavardhana presented him a golden opportunity. He devised a plan to kill Grahavaman and allied himself with the king of Malwa, who was the vassal of Rajyavardhana. Together they launched a successful surprise attack on Kannauj and killed the king Grahavaman. News was brought to Rajyavardhana almost immediately on his return from the Hunna campaign, that his brother-in-law had been murdered by the king of Malwa, and his sister Rajyashri cast into prison at Kannauj. Rajyavardhana immediately set out to punish the rebel vassal, who had insulted his family. Harsha, in spite of his protests, was left behind at the capital along with the main army of infantry and elephants. Rajyavardhana took a 10,000-strong cavalry to retaliate quickly and hurried to Kannauj. The king of Malwa left Kannauj and met him at a battlefield. Both the forces clashed and Rajyavardhana defeated the rebellious king of Malwa at the battlefield. The defeated vassal fled back to his kingdom with the remains of his army. Rajyavardhana then advanced to Kannauj to liberate his sister. But Sasanka, who was still at Kannauj, invited him to a peace treaty at a neutral place. However, at the place of meeting, Sasanka ambushed Rajyavardhana and had him murdered. Thus, Rajyavardhana died before he could reach Kannauj at 606 CE. King Sasanka hoped that since Harsha was not grown up to mature age, after the death of Rajyavardhana, the kingdom of Thaneshwar would be left without proper government and would soon collapse. But those expectations were soon falsified.